Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be working on Pikachu, and I did a few changes to my original design. It's actually not that many changes, but I did add two tail options. It's a male Pikachu and a female Pikachu. She has a cute little heart on her tail, and because it is Pokemon's 25th anniversary here coming up at the end of February, I decided to make her a little bit more of a celebratory Pokemon. So I added a cute little Pokemon heart because if you're like me, you've loved Pokemon since 25 years ago. Did that just age me a little bit? Maybe. And then I added a cute little party hat. So yeah, this is what we're gonna work on today, and I totally love it. I'm so in love. I think I'm biased, but yeah. So what you're gonna need for this project is crochet hooks, of course. I use a 5mm crochet hook, and now I'm going to make it clear, I cannot embroider. I tried multiple times. So the cheeks are crocheted. If you can embroider, because I just can't. I've tried multiple times to make it look pretty. My circles never look like circles. So for me personally, it is easier to crochet them. But in order to crochet really small details, I use a very, very small crochet hook. Now this is the smallest one I own. It's a 1.75 crochet hook, and I use embroidery thread, or you can use, what are these called, crochet thread. I just don't have any in red. I buy my embroidery floss in like all sorts of different colors so I can have a wide array, and it doesn't cost as much as trying to buy a bunch of these in all sorts of different colors, but I do have black. So yeah, I also used red embroidery thread and crochet thread for little details. Really the only thing I used the crochet thread was the little nose, and the red embroidery floss for the cheeks. Now if you can embroider, you could probably get away with just using regular red yarn, but you'd have to test and play with it. I'm pretty sure you could split the yarn too. Instead of using all the plies, just split it in half and use thinner yarn to be able to embroider the cheeks, if you can embroider. So of course we're gonna use some yellow, some brown for the tail. It's really, you need such little amounts of that brown. And then some black for the tips of the ears. Again, very little amount of brown. And these were going to be the main Pikachu colors. And then if you are going to make the heart and the hat, you're going to need some red, some white, and of course some black. And that's the details that we have in the little heart. I'm just so excited. Other than that, so you got your worsted weight yarn, which is what I always use, your crochet hook at 5mm, and that's going to depend on you and your tension and how tight or how loosely you crochet. What you don't want is to have holes and gaps in your work, so try to get as tight as you can without, you know, physically hurting yourself. But that's how you decide which crochet hook size to do. Start out with a 5, and if it's too holey, then go down a size, or if you feel like it's extremely tight and you just can't get in through those stitches, then go up a size. And other than that, you're just gonna need some fiber fill, and of course your other super basic tools. You're gonna need some scissors, and I didn't prep for this, obviously. I always have my little Altoids bin with some tapestry needles and some stitch markers. And then of course, you don't have to, this is optional, but I always use some needles, and that just helps me hold stuff in place before I sew it on. So, and last but not least, you're gonna need some 16 millimeter crochet eyes. This is my favorite size. I love how big they are. At least for my tiny dolls, they look huge and I love them. So some 16 millimeter eyes. I think that is all you are going to need. So let's get started with our Pikachu. I'm going to use a 5 millimeter hook and some yellow worsted weight yarn. Your hook size is really going to depend on your tension and the thickness of your yarn. So let's start with a magic ring, or I personally just chain 2 and work on that first chain, on the second chain from my hook. And we're going to start out by making 8 single crochets on that second chain. For round number 2, we're going to single crochet increase in every single stitch all the way around for a total of 16 stitches at the end. At this point, I like to grab my stitch markers because we will be working in continuous rounds, just so I can keep track of where my rounds end and begin. For round number 3, we're going to increase on that first stitch and then single stitch on that next stitch. And we're going to continue that pattern all the way around for a total of 24 stitches. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker right here and do a single crochet increase. Place my stitch marker on that first stitch I made, and then do a single stitch on that next stitch, and then increase, single stitch all the way around. So let's start round number 4. This one is worked a little bit differently than previous rounds because we're going to work on making a square-ish shape. So this round starts with 2 single crochets. The first one and your second one. And we're going to place our stitch marker on that very first one we made. Now you're going to work 2 single crochet increases. So here's our first increase, and then our next stitch do another increase. Now you're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. We're going to single crochet increase in the next 2 stitches, or single crochet increase twice. single crochet in the next 4 stitches. And now a single crochet increase in the next 2 stitches, or single crochet increase twice. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Single crochet increase in the next 2 stitches. And then finally do a single crochet in the last 2 stitches, and you should have 32 stitches at the end of this round. I can't give up this feeling that I get when looking down from the sky. For round number 5 through 10, we're simply going to single stitch all the way around, and I'm going to skip through this part because it's very repetitive, and I'll meet you guys back for round 11. For round number 11, we are going to start by making a single stitch in the first 3 stitches. I'm going to place your stitch marker on that very first stitch you made. And now we're going to do a single stitch decrease through the next 2 stitches. Next, you want a single stitch in the next 6 stitches. Next, do a single stitch decrease through the next 2 stitches. Single stitch in the next 6 stitches. Do a single stitch decrease through the next 2 stitches. Single stitch through the next 6 stitches.
I was wrong to say I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause in the story of our lives, the best of times through colored glass, time rolls on.
Single stitch decrease through the next 2 stitches. And then finally single stitch in the last 3 stitches. For round number 12, we're going to start with a single stitch in the first 2 stitches. And then place your stitch marker on the very first stitch that you made. And now we're going to work a single crochet or single stitch increase in the next 3 stitches. Now we're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Do a single crochet increase in the next 3 stitches. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Do a single crochet increase in the next 3 stitches. Single stitch in the next 4 stitches. Single crochet increase in the next 3 stitches. And lastly, single crochet in the last 2 stitches, and you should have a total of 40 stitches at the end of round 12. For round number 13 and 14, you're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around for a total of 40 stitches, and I will meet you guys back for round number 15. For round number 15, we are going to start by making 2 single crochets. Place your stitch marker. Next, you're going to do 2 single crochet decreases through the next 4 stitches.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we
Single crochet in the next 8 stitches.
never trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go through the highways till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways.
Single crochet, decrease twice. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Single crochet, decrease twice.
Melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing
Single crochet in the next 8 stitches.
song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways.
Single crochet, decrease twice. And single crochet in the last 2 stitches. At the end of round 15, we should have a total of 32 stitches.
And we'll grow in number.
For round number 16, we're going to start with a single crochet on that first stitch and then place our stitch marker. Next, make a single crochet, decrease twice.
Horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways.
Single crochet in the next 6 stitches.
And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways. And on we'll go.
Single crochet, decrease twice. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Single crochet, decrease twice. Single stitch in the next 6 stitches. Single crochet, decrease twice. And then single crochet in that very last stitch. At the end of round 16, you should have 24 stitches. Pull up your loop long because we are going to attach the eyes next. So let's go ahead and grab our 16mm eyes. These are my favorite size for this specific doll. I think they're just adorable, nice and big. And for this step, I just wanted to point out that it's going to work the same way for both right-handed and left-handed people. I know that that last stitch marker is just going to be on the opposite side, but you should count your stitches just the same way. So counting that very first stitch, we're going to count over 6 stitches. And I'm gonna use pins to kind of demonstrate placement so it's easier for you to visualize what I'm doing. And you just want to count towards the normal direction of your round. So count 6 stitches over, and then I'm just placing my pin here so you can kind of see what the halfway point of the face is. I wish I didn't use a yellow pen so you could better see this, but after you count your 6 stitches over, we're going to count 6 rounds up. So 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and now we're gonna go over 3 in each direction. So 1, 2, 3, and then place it in that top corner. Grab another pin from that halfway point and count 3 in the other direction. I know it kind of looks off right now, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of the way that I'm holding the head. But that is where I usually place my eyes, and as you can see, I didn't move them and they looked fine. But again, it's going to be personal preference where you like to put your eyes. This is just where I found them to be the cutest and where I like them. You can most definitely like play around, stuff your face, and play around with the eye placement if you don't like where I've placed them. And that's our eyes. Once you've placed your eyes, they should be 4 stitches in between the eyes. So once you're happy with exactly where they are, you can go ahead and put the backings to the eyes, and then we can get started on the next round. So we can get started on round number 17, and in this round we're going to single crochet decrease, and then we're going to single crochet on the next stitch, and then single crochet decrease, and then single crochet on the next stitch, a total of 8 times, and then we should have 16 stitches at the end of this round.
Yeah, I can't give up this feeling that I get when looking down from the sky.
At this point, I like to lightly stuff the head, not all the way down because I don't want to accidentally crochet my stuffing on the next round, but get most of the heavy work done while the hole is still a little bit bigger. But yeah, just stuff it a little bit and we will continue on to round 18. So for round number 18, we're simply going to single crochet decrease all the way around for a total of 8 stitches. For round number 19, simply single crochet all the way around. We should have 8 stitches at the end of this round.
The best of times through color glass. Time rolls on enough to let me move on past, but every little now and then it
For round number 20, we're simply going to single crochet increase in each stitch all the way around for a total of 16 stitches.
Was wrong to say I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause in the story of our lives, the best of times through color.
At this point, we want to fully stuff our head. Make sure that it's just really nice and firm. Don't overstuff, because sometimes when you overstuff, it's really gonna pull apart the stitches and make it look a little bit too holy. So you just want it to be nice and firm, and play around with it, kind of massage the stuffing around until you think it's perfect. So for round 21, we're going to single crochet increase on the next stitch and a single crochet on the stitch after, a total of 8 times all the way around, and we should have 24 stitches at the end of this round. For round number 22, we're going to single crochet increase and then a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. We're going to do that 8 times all the way around for a total of 32 stitches at the end of round 22. So for the next round, we're actually going to create the armholes. So in order to do this, we're going to crochet in the first 5 stitches. So let's work on that first single crochet, and then we're going to place our stitch marker and then do 4 more single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to skip 6 stitches, and that's going to be our first armhole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on that 7th stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. and then single crochet on the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to we're going to skip 6 stitches for our next armhole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on that 7th stitch we're going to do a single crochet, and now we're going to single crochet on the last 10 stitches.
Till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
So for round number 24 and 25, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around, skipping those skip stitches from the previous round, and we should have 20 stitches at the end of these 2 rounds.
Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways.
So for round number 26, we're going to work on that very first leg, and we're going to start out by doing a single crochet and placing our stitch marker, and then we're going to single crochet in the next 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and now we're going to skip 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and now we're going to, on that 11th stitch, we're going to do a single crochet, and then do a single crochet on that very last stitch.
Till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go.
For round number 27, or round 2 of leg 1, we're simply going to single stitch decrease all the way around for a total of 5 stitches. And now we want to slip stitch to that very first stitch and fasten off. We want to leave somewhat of a tail to help us close off the leg. So grab your tapestry needle, and we are going to close off that tiny hole that we have. And what I like to do is I use the front loops only, and I just weave it in and out through all the loops, and then pull tight and then weave in my end. So now I'm actually going to lightly stuff the body and then try to push some of that stuffing on that leg that we just worked on. So I know for my right-handed friends, your leg's actually going to be on the opposite side, but this part should work the same for both right-handed and left-handed people. So there's going to be a total of 10 unworked stitches, and I like starting right on the side and then working towards the back of the doll. So I know for right-handed people, your eyes are actually going to be on the other side. So start counting from the right, that very first stitch, count 5 and attach your hook on that 6th stitch. For left-handed people, start at the front on the left side and count 5 stitches and attach your hook on that 6th stitch. And you want to chain 1 and work on the next 5 stitches. You kind of want to squeeze it a little bit and get your hook in on that next available stitch, and then single crochet 5 to finish off the round for a total of 10 stitches. So here I'm showing you, I'm just gonna kind of squeeze in and pull really tight as I'm trying to start working on the opposite side. And I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I feel like I was doing so good throughout the video, and here I started getting off of frame a little bit. So I'm just finishing off my 5 single stitches on the opposite side so we can get ready to start round number 27. And on this round, just like the previous leg, we are simply going to single crochet decrease all the way around for a total of 5 stitches. I do want to add that at this point I only did like 2 or 3 decreases and then finished stuffing the body, because I know that hole gets really small. So I try to stuff as I go, as I'm doing my decreases, so don't lose count of your stitches. But while the hole is bigger, I try to get most of the stuffing in and then finish off my round. And you'll see here in a minute, the hole's gonna get really small, but you can still finish stuffing it. So you kind of have to play with it. Do a stitch, stuff it, do a stitch, stuff it. You do want, you know, you want it to be a little bit firm.
Cause those hands and legs can't stop me. I'll just hold on for dear life. Yeah, I can't give up this feeling that I get when looking down from the sky.
So now you want to slip stitch or join to that very first stitch that we made and fasten off. You want to leave a little bit of a longer tail than we did for the previous leg, because we're going to use the tail to close off the hole in between the legs as well. So grab your tapestry needle, and just like on the previous leg, I'm going to wean it in and out. I'm not going to wean anything, sorry. I'm going to weave it in and out of the front loops only to finish closing off the hole. And I'm simply going to pull that really tight, and then I'm going to whip stitch, or I'm going to weave the thread or the tail closer to the hole, and then just whip stitch that area closed so we can just close that gap. And afterwards, you simply just want to weave your tail in and cut off any excess yarn that you may have. The arms are probably the most complicated part of the whole design, and it's just because I do a series of decreases so I don't have a hole in the armpits. So we have 6 stitches that are left unworked, which are the ones that we skipped earlier, and the ones that are on top are just worked regularly single crochets. But the very first stitch, we're going to do a decrease with that loop that's hiding on the armpit, and then on the last stitch we're gonna do it with that used stitch from that previous round, and we're gonna do a decrease right there, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And the only difference between left-handed and right-handed people, the stitch count is going to work the same, but left-handed people, we're gonna start on the left side, and the right-handed people, you want to start on the right side. So that stitch right there, there's a decrease with the first stitch and the bump, and then that last stitch we're going to decrease with that next stitch. Now for this specific pattern, if you decide to do the arms down and not holding a heart, it really doesn't matter. You can just do the 6 stitches and then do the 6 stitches again. Don't do the decreases if you plan on sewing your arms down, because you know the hole is going to be there, but it's not going to matter because the arms are not stuffed, so you kind of hide it and you're really not going to see it. So doing those decreases is really not that important. But if you do want your Pikachu to be holding the heart, then I would just close up those stitches so you don't see the leftover holes on the arm. On my stitch pattern, I actually show what it would look like if you just do the regular stitches without doing any decreases, and the gap, and how to close that gap later on. If you would want to go back to that one and skip to the part where I do the arms, one of the arms I did it with the decreases, and the other arms I did it without the decreases, and then just use the tail to close up that hole. You would just have to make sure that your tail is a little bit longer so you can at the end sew down the arms to the tummy. Now I know what I'm saying is not really matching what I'm showing in the video. I think I was just trying to over explain the arms here and just doing the voiceover afterwards. I'm having like extra footage, but I thought I would just hop in here and talk about the fact that I do show a version of not doing the decreases on my stitch video. So yeah, let's just get started to the next step, because now I'm mumbling and I'm probably confusing you more than I need to. But if for some reason you're stuck, let me know, because you can message me in any of my social medias and I'm more than willing to help you and walk you through this. But here I'm just explaining. If you're left-handed, start on your left hand. That was going to be arm number 1. And if you're right-handed, start on the right hand. So on that second stitch from the back, right, because I like starting on the back and working towards the front. So on that second stitch from the back, just insert your hook, and then we are going to chain 1. So I'm inserting my hook here, pulling up some yarn. I guess he got slippery there for a second. So pull up a yarn and do a chain 1. Now we're going to do a single crochet on that second stitch. And now insert your hook on that next stitch, and that little loop on the back that's kind of hiding there, and that's our first decrease. Now I know I'm trying to wait for it to focus, but you can see that next stitch is the one that we used on the previous round, and that's where I'm inserting it. It's not an unused stitch, it's just a used stitch from the previous round. Insert my hook there and then pull up my loop, and then I'm doing a decrease with the next unworked stitch, one of the ones that we skipped. And then we're simply going to single crochet on the last 3 stitches. And here I'm just pushing my tail in so it's out of the way. And we're gonna do 1, 2, and 3. And then for your next round, which is round number 2 on the arm, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around and slip stitch to that first stitch. And I know it's really small and it's gonna get really tight, so don't hate me, but I promise it's worth it.
Belly on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
And now we're just gonna fasten off after our join, and I didn't weave it in now. I'm probably gonna close up the hole later on, but I kind of wanted to show right there in this area, if you just did the single crochets all the way around and skip the decreases, this is the area where the holes would be. But like I said, it really doesn't matter because you don't have to worry about that hole because we're pushing that arm down, so you're not going to be able to see the hole if you decide to just do the single crochets all the way around.
I don't wanna miss a beat.
So now let's get started on the next arm. So right-handed people, you're going to work on your left arm. Left-handed people, you're going to work on your right arm. The stitch counts should work exactly the same. We're just working on opposite hands. So just like before, you want to attach your yarn on that second stitch away from the armpit and do your chain 1. And this round we're gonna start with 4 single crochets. So we're going up. Sorry, I'm waiting for my camera to focus here. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that next stitch is the last unworked stitch before the armpits, and we're going to do the same process like we did before. So grab that last unworked stitch and do a decrease with that bump or that loop that's kind of hiding in the back. Right there, you can kind of see it. And then do your decrease right there. Ooh, it's getting tight. And then you can see that worked stitch from the previous round. Grab that one and then grab your next available unworked stitch, and that's where we're doing our decrease. I really do hope this is making sense, but that's going to be the last stitch. And then now we're just going to work on round number 2 for your second arm, and it's just simply single crocheting all the way around for a total of 6 stitches. And like I said, again, this is going to get really, really tight. So just be very careful. And here we're just gonna, after you join, just fasten off and we are done with the arms. I'm gonna zoom out here real quick so you can see. And at this point, I'm just gonna grab my tapestry needle, and just like we did with the feet, we're gonna weave in and out through those front loops and pull tight. If you're gonna sew in your arm, this is when you would go ahead and do it. Just attach it in a couple different places with a whip stitch to the body. If not, just leave the tails unworked because we're gonna use them later to attach the heart. Next, we're gonna work on the tail. And for this one, I just used a yellow and a brown and my 5mm hook. So for the tail, let's start with a chain 3. And you want to start with a long tail because this is what we're going to use to attach it to Pikachu. Now I like using the back bumps, but you don't have to. You can just use the second stitch from the hook, but single stitch in the next 2 back bumps or chains. Now this is gonna sound weird, but we're not going to chain before we turn. By not chaining and just simply turning, we're gonna keep our edges really nice and sharp. So yeah, don't chain, just turn. And do a single crochet in each stitch. And then chain 4. Now on your second chain from your hook, do a single stitch. And then single stitch in the next 2 chains. And then a single stitch on the next stitch. And we're going to leave that very last stitch unworked. So don't chain, just turn. I know this is going to sound weird. I know it's not usually how people do it, but that's just how I keep my edges really straight. So go ahead and just turn. And then for row 3, or sorry, row 4, we're going to single stitch across. So you should have 4 stitches. And actually on that 4th stitch is when we're gonna go do our color change. So start out like you would a regular single crochet, but don't pull your yarn through. Actually just change your color to yellow and pull your yarn through there, and then chain 4.
Those hands and lights can't stop me. I'll just hold on for dear life. Yeah, I can't give up this feeling that I get when looking down from the sky.
Do a single crochet on the second chain from the hook, and a single crochet in the next 2 chains. and then a single crochet on the next available stitch, and another single crochet, and then we're gonna leave the rest of the stitches unworked. Now here I'm just gonna pull on my tails a little bit. Sometimes when you do those color changes, it gets a little bit loose. So don't chain and turn your work, and we're going to single crochet in each stitch, or the first 5 stitches, or all the stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then you're gonna chain 4. Turn your work, do a single stitch on the second chain from the hook, single crochet in the next 2 chains, and single crochet in the next 3 stitches. You're gonna leave those last 2 stitches unworked. Do not chain, turn. Now single crochet in the first 5 stitches. And do a single crochet increase on that very last stitch. Do not chain and turn your work. And start out with a single crochet increase on that very first stitch. Single crochet on the next 4 stitches, do a half double crochet on that next stitch, and then do a double crochet on that last stitch. If you are doing the male version, at this point you can fasten off and weave in your ends. Not all of them. Leave that initial brown tail long, but you can go ahead and weave in all the other ends. If you're working on the female one, then leave your yarn attached. So I had this crazy idea that I needed a female version of the tail because, you know, the female Pikachu has these cute little bumps that kind of look like a heart as a tip of her tail. So do not chain, turn your work. We're gonna slip stitch all the way around, or sorry, not all the way around, all the way down through those 8 stitches. And then when we get to that very last one, we're going to chain 1. You're gonna see me trying not to chain there and it didn't work. So chain 1. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually going to work through the post of that last row. So just insert your hook right through that stitch and then work 4 single crochets. Slip stitch on the post of the next round. And through the post of that last round that we can see, do 4 single crochets. So we're working on the sides of the rows. So do your 4 single crochets. And then simply slit stitch to one of those, the opposite side of the chains from that round, just to kind of blend it in with the tail. We're just going to do a slip stitch. And now just fasten off and weave in all your ends except that beginning tail, because that's the one that we're going to use for to join it to the body. Next, we're gonna work on our ears, and for this one we're gonna use very little bit of black and yellow yarn and our 5mm hook. So we're gonna start with our black yarn, and I wish I would have recorded this in a different color because I know the black is gonna be hard to see, but start with your magic ring, or if you're like me, your chain 2, work on that second chain from the hook and do 4 single crochets. For round number 2, we're simply going to single crochet increase on that very first stitch, and then a single stitch on the next stitch, then a single crochet increase on the next stitch, and then a single crochet on that last stitch. After round 2, you should have 6 stitches. Now for round 3, we're simply going to single stitch all the way around for a total of 6 stitches. Now this is gonna get really tight, but what I forgot to do was pull my yarn tail out. It's gonna sound weird. I do want it on the outside, and that's the reason that I like it on the outside when I'm making pointy things. When you pull it tight, I feel like you get a crispier of a point. So yeah, I just pulled my tail out so I can really pull it really tight and get it really pointy. But like I said before, this is round 3 and we're simply going to single crochet all the way around.
Fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us
now we're going to slip stitch to that first stitch, but we're going to change colors. So actually pull out the yellow when you're doing that slit stitch or that join. And you're going to chain 1. And then for round number 4, we're going to start with an increase on that very first stitch, a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, then a single crochet increase on the next stitch, and then a single crochet in the last 2 stitches. And we're actually going to go back to working on continuous rounds. You don't have to join in this round. So for round number 5 through 7, you're simply going to single crochet all the way around. And here you saw that I pulled the tail to kind of make it pointy. I'm not really worried about it now. We can work on that later. But just do round number 5 through 7, single stitch all the way around for a total of 8 stitches. For round number 8, we're going to start out with a decrease and a single crochet in the next 6 stitches. For round number 9, we're going to start with a single crochet decrease, and single stitch in the last 5 stitches. And then for round number 10, we're going to start with a decrease, and a single stitch in the last 4 stitches. I know this is going to be so tight, but that's the hard part of working with smaller details. You want to slip stitch to that very first stitch and then fast enough, leaving a long tail so we can sew it on to the head. Right now at this point, as you can see, I pulled that tail, that black tail, really tight to make sure that it's really nice and pointy. Then at this point you can grab your tapestry needle and weave in that black tail. And then you can just go ahead and make your second ear. next we're gonna start on the legs, so grab your 5mm hook and your yellow yarn, and you can use your magic ring or just like me chain 2 and work on that second stitch from the hook, and we're going to single crochet 4. Now pull your tail tight to close up any holes that we may have from the magic ring or your chain. For round 2 of the leg, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around, and this is going to get really tight. It's a tiny leg. For round number 3, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around, and at the end we're going to chain 1. I know the text says to chain 1 and turn, but we don't actually need to turn. That was a typo on my part. I apologize.
Was wrong to say I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause in the story of our lives.
Now you can grab your crochet hook or your handy dandy stick and push that tail in. It's gonna work a little bit like stuffing to fill up that tiny ball that we have right now, but the next round, or we're actually gonna turn it now into a row. We're going to hold our foot closed, and we're going to make a row, kind of close up the hole. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on that first stitch, or first stitch is gonna be worked through the first stitch and on the opposite side, or technically the last stitch of the round. And it's gonna get really tight. You can kind of see we have the first stitch and the last stitch and the second stitch and the third stitch. Those are the 2 stitches that we're gonna close up together, and I like using the outside loops for this. I know it auto-focused on me, but you can kind of see it. There's a first stitch and fourth stitch together, and second stitch and third stitch together, and now that is row number 4. We're not working on rounds anymore. I'm gonna chain 1 and then turn, and then for row 5 I'm just gonna single crochet in each stitch. That's 1, and then 2, and then we can fast enough, leaving a tail for sewing.
It creeps on back to shade my smile.
So next we're going to work on the cheek detail. I like to use embroidery floss. I think crochet thread would also work really well for this, but if you can embroider, you're more than welcome to embroider the cheeks. You can also needle felt it. I don't do either, so I use embroidery thread and my smallest hook, which is a 1.75mm hook. And just like before, you can do your magic ring or a chain 2, working on that second chain from the hook. But yeah, if you can embroider, definitely embroider. I'm really bad at it. So I'm doing my chain 2s, and I'm going to do 10 half double crochets on that second chain from the hook. To finish off round 1, you simply want to join to that very first stitch and then chain 1. And then round 2 for the cheek is simply a half double crochet increase in every single stitch all the way around for a total of 20 stitches. And then I will say, working with embroidery floss sometimes is a little bit tricky because it's just not like, I don't know if the right word is winded correctly like yarn is. So the strands get a little bit looser and more separated than one another. I just like using embroidery floss because you can buy such a large amount of colors, and whereas with crochet thread, which sometimes does work better, you know, you'd have to buy each individual color separately, and I just feel like for how tiny the details are, embroidery thread, it just works. It takes a little bit of time to get used to crocheting with it. I don't usually crochet tiny things, so it's hard getting used to it. But yeah, when you get to the end, you simply want to slit stitch to that first stitch and leave a long tail for sewing. And to finish off that cheek, we're simply going to grab that tail and pull it as tight as we can to close off the hole as much as possible. And sometimes I know when you're putting 10 half double crochets on a hole, it can be really hard to get it really tight and closed. And at this point, you can just use your embroidery or your tapestry needle to kind of help you close that gap more if you can't get it tight enough. Next, we're going to work on the assembly, and if you wanted to do the heart and the hat there at the end of the video, I wanted to finish just doing the basic Pikachu at first. But first I'm going to go and attach the cheeks, and the way that I like to do the cheeks is I'm going to place the top of the cheek one row below the eyes. So like I want a whole row to be visible in between the two, and then I'm going to center the edge of the cheek with the half of the eye, if that makes sense. And that's where I like to place it. Like always, I'm going to pin everything down before I sew it on, just to make sure that my placement is right, and then kind of move it there and see if I'm happy with it. And then I'm simply going to whip stitch all the way around. Technically on that first cheek, I didn't weave in that tail from the cheek, and then I was struggling trying to keep it in. So when I went to do the second cheek, I actually pulled it out, weaved in the tail, and then sewed it on.
Through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go. Through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Next, I'm just gonna embroider a tiny nose, and I'm centering this in between the two eyes and at the edge of the bottom of the eyes, if that makes sense. And I just use some embroidery floss, sorry, crochet thread. You can use embroidery floss as well for the tiny nose. Next, I'm going to be attaching the ears. If you look at your ears, you see that they slightly curve a little bit with like a thicker, I wouldn't necessarily maybe call it a drape, and you want that to be facing out with the curve facing in. On my previous or my original Pikachu model, I had the ears placed one right up top and then the other one off to the side, to give it a cuter look. I think for this one I want them to both point straight up, just so they look a little bit different from one another. And this is going to be personal preference. You can place the ears wherever it is that you may want. I just centered them with that magic ring or my chain too, and then placed them, made sure that I placed them the same distance apart from that original first round. So once I'm happy with the placement, I'm just gonna go ahead and whip stitch all the way around and attach them to the tiny head.
Thousands, and we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go.
Next, I'm attaching the tiny feet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place the flat part of the foot against those bumps at the bottom. Just gonna pin them down into place and then whip stitch them all the way around those bottom bumps that we made. And finally, I'm gonna go ahead and attach the tail. For this specific one, I'm gonna use the female tail because I already have a male Pikachu, and I want them facing out opposite directions, so their tails point out the other way so they can be right next to each other. And this is very easy. I just pin it down. It takes up most of the brown part, takes up most of the back, so I'm just gonna pin it down into place, and I'm gonna use that long brown tail to whip stitch all the way around. Next, we're going to work on some additional details since this year is the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. But yeah, if you don't want to do the details, you're pretty much done with your Pikachu. I think I did already mention you can just sew the arms down on the original model, but since we're being a little bit festive, I wanted to give Pikachu a couple extra details, and I made a cute little party hat and a Pokemon heart to represent our love for Pokemon. And I can't believe they've been around for 25 years. I feel really old now because I've been watching Pokemon since I was a child. So yeah, let's get started on the tiny Pokemon heart. So for the tiny Pokeball heart, we're going to use some red, white, and black yarn. We're going to start out with our red yarn first. We're going to do our magic ring, or if you're like me, a chain too. Working on that second chain from the hook, we are going to do 5 single crochets. Make sure you pull your tail tight so we can close up that hole. And then for round number 2, we're simply going to single crochet increase all the way around. For round number 3, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around for a total of 10 stitches. And on this one, we do want to join at the end. and we're actually going to fasten off because this is our first bump. So now for bump number 2, you want to follow the same exact, you want to repeat round 1 through 3, you're going to join, but this time do not fasten off, leave your yarn attached. So here I'm just joining to my first stitch, and then I'm going to fasten it off. You want to leave a little bit of a tail because we're going to use that tail to close off a little gap that we're going to get in between the 2 bumps. So yeah, I'm going to start on my second bump. Now I'm fast forwarding through this part, but you're just repeating round 1 through 3, you're going to join and leave your yarn attached. So we're going to start round number 4, and on this round we're actually going to join the 2 bumps. So chain 1 and then do a single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to count all of them, sorry.
Give up this.
So once you do your 10 all the way around, grab your second bump. You can pick any stitch that you may want. We're going to leave that long tail out. Don't crochet it. I mean, it doesn't matter because you can pull it out later, but that's the tail that I'm going to use later to close up the tiny gap that we're going to get. But pick any stitch and then pull up your loop and do a single crochet, and then single crochet on the rest of the 9 stitches of that second loop. Now you're gonna join to that very first stitch that we made, but when we're doing the join, we're actually going to change to your black yarn.
I was wrong to say I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause in the story of our lives, the best of times through colored glass, time rolls on enough to let me move on past, but every little now and then it creeps.
So here I'm just pulling all my tails really tight, and I'm chaining 1, and I'm going to single crochet all the way around. We should have a total of 20 stitches here. Now we're going to join to the first stitch that we made, but when we're doing the join, we're going to switch to our white yarn. And then you're gonna chain 1 with your white, and for this round, which is round number 6, we're going to do a single stitch decrease and a single stitch in the next 2 stitches all the way around for a total of 15 stitches. So let's start with our decrease, and then a single stitch and a single stitch, and just repeat that 4 more times all the way around, And at the end of this round, we're simply going to join and chain 1.
It creeps on back to shade my smile.
So here I'm joining and I'm chaining 1, or actually I'm not doing anything. Sorry. So at this point you can see that I have a mess of tails, so we're just gonna try to clean up my area a little bit. So here you see me cutting all my tails, which was a big mistake. Leave your white one alone. Don't cut it. Don't be Sonia. Don't make the same mistake I did, because you'll regret it later. Just cut off your red yarn and your black yarn. But I was so mad I did this, but okay. So now we're actually going to work on closing up that gap that we have in between the 2 bumps. So you can grab your tapestry needle. I'm just organizing my workspace here because I'm a hot mess, guys. So yeah, at this point you probably want to pull on all those tails really tight, because sometimes when you're changing colors they get a little bit loose and it's not fun. But here I'm just grabbing my tapestry needle and I'm just gonna whip stitch. You see that gap that we have right there? We just want to close it up. Super simple. I'm just gonna go back and forth a couple of times and then weave in that red tail. So let's start on round number 7. For round number 7, we are going to do a single crochet decrease and then a single crochet on the stitch after 5 times all the way around for a total of 10 stitches. So that's my decrease and my single stitch, and then continue doing that. Here I'm just joining my yarn because, you know, I cut that white tail and I didn't mean to. So I'm just gonna join and do my chain 1. And for round number 8, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around for a total of 10 stitches. So now we're joining, and now I'm going to lightly stuff my heart since the hole is still somewhat big. You can see on my yellow heart I really understuffed it and I didn't like the way that it looked. So we're really gonna stuff this one because I want it nice and chunky. So while the hole is still big, try to do most of your stuffing now. And I'm gonna use my little stuffing stick. Is that the right term for those? My stuffing stick, and stuff it really nice. Make sure you get into each one of those bumps.
What's left? The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah. No,
And now we're gonna do round number 9. And for this round, we're simply going to single crochet decrease all the way around. And now you'll see me, I'm going to use my finger to push that stuffing down because I don't want to accidentally crochet my stuffing into my work. So I'm going to use that one finger to push in the stuffing down.
and on we'll go.
we're going to join to that very first stitch that we made, and we're going to fasten off. You don't really need a long tail for this one because we're just going to use it up to close the hole. But as you can see, we still have somewhat of a small hole, and I'm just going to continue to stuff it until it's really nice and firm and chunky. But you know, the stuffing is kind of tricky because you don't want to overstuff to where it pushes your stitches out too much, but you don't want to understuff to where your work is not nice and firm. Because like I said, with my yellow one, I really did understuff it and it just didn't shape as nicely. But just like before, grab your tapestry needle and weave your needle in and out through those front loops or the outer loops to close it up, and weave in your ends. And now we're gonna work on the cute little birthday hat or party hat. I know my red one looks a little bit Santa Claus-ish, but I did really want it to match my Pokemon heart. But you can literally pick any color, pinks or blues or whatever party hat makes you happy. For this one, I wanted to see what the white one would look like, so I'm just gonna chain 2 or use your magic ring, and on that second chain from the hook I am going to single crochet 4. And on this one we're going to be working on continuous rounds, so we're not joining. And just like with the ears, I'm going to pull that tail out so it gives us that pointy look. I feel like it helps. I mean, I don't really know if it for sure does, but I feel like it does. So for round number 2, we are going to single crochet increase on that very first stitch, and then a single crochet on the next stitch, then do a single crochet increase on the next stitch, and a single crochet on that last stitch. And that is round 2. You should have 6 stitches at the end of this round. For round number 3, we're going to do a single crochet increase on that very first stitch, and then a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then we're going to repeat that one more time. So we're going to do a single crochet increase and a single crochet in the next 2 stitches for a total of 8 stitches for round 3. For round 4, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around. As you can see here, I was just pulling on my tail to give me that cute little, to close up that hole and give me a cute little pointy tip. So round 4, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around, and you should have 8 stitches. For round number 5, we're going to do a single crochet increase on that very first stitch and a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So here's my increase, and then single crochet in the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to repeat that sequence one more time. So a single crochet increase, and then a single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and we should have a total of 10 stitches at the end of this round. For round number 6, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around for a total of 10 stitches. For round number 7, we're going to do a single crochet increase on that next stitch, and then a single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. So here's our increase, and then a single crochet in the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're going to repeat that sequence one more time. So a single crochet increase, and then a single stitch in the next or the last 4 stitches. For our final round, which is round number 8, we're simply going to single crochet all the way around. We should have 12 stitches, and at the very end we're simply going to join and then leave a long tail for sewing.
Those hands and legs can't stop me. I'll just hold on for dear life. Yeah, I can't give up this feeling that I get when looking down from the sky.
So after you fasten off, weave in that initial tail that we had from the top, and now we're gonna work on the cute little confetti details around the hat. And the way that I made this was by creating just a series of French knots. I'm gonna try to teach you here. I don't necessarily know if I'll be the best of teaching embroidery techniques, because I don't even know if I necessarily do them right, but I shall try. So grab some sort of contrasting color or matching color to your hat, and you're just gonna pick a random spot. So to begin my French knot, I actually go through an actual open hole, so like a corner of a stitch. And here we're gonna wait for my camera to focus. You'll notice that my camera goes in and out of focus a lot. I'm still learning how to properly use it so this doesn't happen anymore, but I tried. So you can see here I'm actually going through a hole and not a stitch, or I guess a corner of a stitch is this what we would call it. So pull your yarn, make sure you leave a tail in, and then I'm gonna wrap that yarn around my tapestry needle 3 times. I do believe on a regular French knot you only do it twice, but when we come back we're actually going to go through a stitch. You don't want to go on the same hole that you came in through, because you're just gonna lose your knot. I don't know if this happens with regular embroidery. I would think not, because there's no holes in, I mean, I guess there is holes in fabric, but they're not as big. So in order for us to not lose our knot, I'm gonna bring the needle back through an actual stitch. So when we begin our knot, I like to go through an actual hole, and then when we're finishing off the knot, I like to go through an actual stitch. I hope that makes sense. You kind of have a cute little knot right there. So I'm gonna show it a couple of more times. As you can see, that tiny white dot, if it were to focus for me, is what a regular knot would look like. You see it's significantly smaller, which is why I like wrapping mine around 3 times and not 2. So let's go through. So we're gonna go in through a hole, pull your yarn. Okay, I'm trying to get it to focus. My camera does not like me. and wrap it around 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're gonna bring our needle back, and you really want to hold on to those loops that we created on the needle because they're escape artists, so we gotta make sure they're held together. And now we're gonna push our yarn through a stitch. And I did notice with my tapestry needle, you want one where the hole is not as wide, because then it gets really hard trying to pull your knot through. I was struggling a little bit with my needle. I'm not sure if I used a different needle the last time or I was just struggling while I was recording, because you know that's what happens to me. But try to use a thinner needle so it's easier to get those slip knots through. So I'm gonna be done talking because I'm just confusing myself. I will try to find you a proper French knot tutorial because I know I'm probably not doing it right. I know the only difference is that I wrap it around 3 times, but that's because I want a bigger knot. Anyway, you can go ahead and make as many as you want to just kind of give it that funfetti party look. And right now I'm just grabbing my red tails and double knotting them so those knots don't move anywhere. So here I have both my hats done. It's so crazy to see how much bigger my red one is, and they're both worsted weight yarn, but you know, some yarns are thinner than others, even if they're the same brand. It's so crazy. But I'm lightly stuffing the hat, making sure I tuck in whatever tails that I have left over. You don't really need to stuff the hat. I don't feel like it. I'm not sure why I did, but what's done is done. But I think at this point I'm just playing around with both my hats because I couldn't decide which one I wanted, if I liked the white or the red. But and you know, placement of your hat is absolutely going to be up to you. Do you want it right in the middle? Do you want it off to the side? I think either way is going to look cute. Again, personal preference. And I did end up deciding to go with the red hat instead. So right here I'm just using a slip stitch to attach the red hat. And don't be like Sonia, I for some reason did not leave a long enough tail on my red. I mean, technically I could have grabbed another strand of yarn and finish it, but you'll just watch me here trying to struggle sewing it all in with that tiny tail that I allowed myself to have. Next, I'm simply going to attach the heart to Pikachu, and I'm using those yellow tails from the arms to do that. And I'm going straight through the arm, grabbing a stitch from the heart and doing that a couple of times, just going back and forth, and then just weaving in my yellow ends. And that is all. Thank you for spending the last 2 hours with me, watching me rumble on. But here is my Pikachu. She is all done. She looks beautiful. She's about to party it up with the other Pikachu. They're going to celebrate 25 years of just being everybody's favorite Pokemon. Although Pikachu isn't necessarily my favorite Pokemon, but it's definitely, I believe, the most loved and recognized Pokemon in the world. And yeah, so thank you for watching. If you do decide to make it, please hop into any of my social media accounts and tag me. I would love to see your work, and give me a thumbs up, a subscribe, and if you feel like it's worthy, give it a share. And yeah, also comment down below, what would you like to see next? And here at the end of the video are some bloopers.
No, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go.
wanna be the very best. No one ever was. I suddenly got so thirsty. Of course, I'm out of water. Why do we need to use bras? Okay, my hair is dark. Okay. Hi everybody. Nope, that is weird. For the most part, I use a 5mm part hook part. What? Nope. Welcome back to my channel. Today, ooh, no, I do not like that. Okay. Use red embroidery floss and black crochet. Shoot. Yes. Go up a size. I'm trying to think here. Did I say that right? Welcome to my TED Talk. I'm walking on sunshine. Oh, Pikachu. Deep thoughts. What's for dinner?